Have you ever wondered if there could be a profound connection between Buddhism and Christianity? A thought-provoking question indeed. As we delve into the annals of history, we uncover an intriguing narrative that binds two of the world's most influential figures, Buddha and Jesus Christ. Let's embark on a journey 500 years back in time, before the birth of Jesus, to the life of Buddha. Buddha, after experiencing the harsh realities of life, ventured into the wilderness for 49 days and nights. It was here that he encountered Mara, the Hindu equivalent of Satan, who tried, albeit in vain, to distract him from his path. Unwavering in his resolve, Buddha emerged victorious and took a vow of poverty. He began wandering from village to village, spreading his teachings of love, peace, economic equity, compassion, and forgiveness. Fast forward to the era of Jesus Christ. His story resonates with striking similarities to Buddha's. After the temptation by Satan, Jesus' identity transformed. He embraced a vow of poverty and began his journey from village to village, living off alms. His message was one of love, compassionate equity, and forgiveness. The parallels are uncanny, aren't they? Now I know what you're thinking. This could all be mere coincidence, right? But hold that thought. One cannot ignore the fact that these two extraordinary individuals, living centuries apart, shared such strikingly similar life paths and teachings. Their stories, interwoven with temptation, vows of poverty, and a life spent wandering and teaching, are eerily alike. Furthermore, their teachings, centered around love, compassion, and forgiveness, echo each other across the span of centuries. These are not just shared values, but foundational principles that have shaped and continue to influence millions of lives across the globe. These striking similarities set the stage for a fascinating exploration of history. Stay tuned as we delve deeper into this provocative connection, tracing the footsteps of Alexander the Great, the evolution of Pyrrhonism, and finally, to the concept of the Buddhist Jesus. Our journey begins around 500 years before the birth of Christ with the Buddha. Born as Siddhartha Gautama to a royal family in the foothills of the Himalayas, his life took a dramatic turn when he renounced his princely title and embarked on a spiritual quest for enlightenment. For 6 years he explored various paths to spiritual realization, but it was only when he sat under the Bodhi tree, determined not to rise until he had found the truth, that he achieved enlightenment. During his meditation he was tempted by Mara, the Hindu equivalent of Satan, who tried to distract him with promises of worldly pleasures and power. But Siddhartha remained unmoved, his determination unwavering. In his victory over temptation, he became the Buddha, or the Enlightened One, and took a vow of poverty. Freed from the trappings of material wealth, he began a life of wandering from village to village. His mission? To share his newfound wisdom, teachings of love, peace, economic equity, compassion, and forgiveness. Buddha's teachings, collectively known as the Dharma, were revolutionary in their time. They suggested a middle way between severe asceticism and indulgence in sensual pleasures, a path to liberation from suffering through self-awareness and ethical living. He taught that each individual, regardless of their social status, could achieve nirvana, a state of ultimate peace and liberation. Buddha also preached metta, or loving kindness, encouraging his followers to extend unconditional love and goodwill towards all beings. This, along with his teachings on compassion and forgiveness, formed the cornerstone of Buddhist ethics. His teachings on economic equity, too, were transformative. Buddha did not shy away from discussing the economic disparities of his time. He advocated for a society where wealth is not concentrated in the hands of a few, but distributed more evenly, ensuring everyone's basic needs are met. Buddha's teachings left a profound impact, but could they have influenced the emergence of Christianity? As we delve deeper into this intriguing connection, we'll find that the threads of history are often interwoven in the most unexpected ways. Fast forward a few centuries, and we find Alexander the Great venturing into the very heartland of Buddha's teachings. In the late 4th century BCE, the young Macedonian king embarked on an audacious military campaign that took him to the furthest reaches of the known world, including the rich and diverse landscapes of India. Accompanying Alexander on this ambitious expedition wasn't just an army of soldiers, but a cadre of philosophers, thinkers, and scholars. Among them was Pyrrho of Elis, a man whose mind was as sharp as Alexander's sword. Pyrrho was not there to fight, but to learn. His battleground was not the field of war, but the field of ideas. And it was in India, amidst the echoes of Buddha's teachings, that Piro found a philosophy that resonated with his own quest for truth. The concepts of Buddhism, with its emphasis on compassion, peace, and introspection, deeply impressed Piro. He spent 1.5 years studying Buddhism, immersing himself in its teachings, and engaging in debates with local philosophers. Piro's encounter with Buddhism was not merely an intellectual exercise. It influenced his own philosophical outlook, leading to the development of Pyrrhonism. This school of thought, which advocated for skepticism and the suspension of judgment, would go on to shape the philosophical landscape of the West. But Piro's journey was not a one-way street. His presence in India and his interactions with local thinkers facilitated a cross-pollination of ideas. Perhaps some of Piro's ideas found their way into the local philosophical discourse, just as Buddhism found its way into his thoughts. This remarkable journey of Alexander the Great, along with his entourage of philosophers like Piro of Elis, marks a significant chapter in the history of ideas. It underscores the interconnectedness of our world, where ideas, like people, journey across borders, influencing and transforming cultures in their wake. This exchange of ideas across borders sets a compelling backdrop for our next chapter. The seeds of Buddhism, once planted in the minds of Greek philosophers, began to germinate into something familiar, yet new. This was the birth of Pyrrhonism, a school of thought named after its founder, Piro of Elis. Piro, who was part of Alexander the Great's expedition in the East, imbibed the teachings of Buddha and wove them into the fabric of Greek philosophy. Pyrrhonism revolved around the concept of epoch, or suspension of judgment, a principle that closely mirrored the Buddhist doctrine of middle way. Pyrrhonists asserted that one should refrain from making truth claims, encouraging a state of perpetual inquiry. This philosophy, in essence, was an echo of Buddhism in the heart of Greece, a testament to the enduring influence of Buddha's teachings. As the wheels of time turned, Pyrrhonism evolved into what we now know as skepticism. This philosophy, championed by the likes of Sextus Empiricus, took Piro's epoch a step further. Skepticism held that absolute certainty was impossible, that doubt and inquiry were the cornerstones of wisdom. It was a philosophy that questioned everything, that left no stone unturned in its quest for understanding. From the fertile soil of skepticism grew the robust tree of Stoicism, a philosophy that preached the virtue of emotional resilience and acceptance of fate. Stoicism, with its emphasis on ethical conduct and inner peace, bore a striking resemblance to the Christian ideals that would soon follow. And thus, we arrive at the dawn of Christianity, a religion that espoused love, compassion, forgiveness, and humility. These were principles that echoed the teachings of Buddha, principles that had journeyed through centuries and cultures, that had metamorphosed from Buddhism to Pyrrhonism, from skepticism to Stoicism, before finally taking root in Christianity. As we can see, the philosophical lineage from Buddha to Jesus is not as far-fetched as one might initially think. The seeds sown by Buddha in the East had bloomed into a vibrant garden of philosophies in the West, ultimately influencing the growth of one of the world's largest religions. A fascinating journey indeed. With this lineage in mind, could it be that Jesus, the central figure of Christianity, was influenced by Buddha? This is a question that has intrigued scholars and historians for centuries. The parallels between the life of Jesus and Buddha are striking. Both figures embarked on spiritual quests in the wilderness, where they faced temptations from dark forces. For Jesus, it was Satan. For Buddha, it was Mara, the Hindu equivalent of Satan. After these trials, they took vows of poverty and embarked on lives of itinerant preaching, spreading their messages of love, compassion, and forgiveness from village to village. These similarities extend to their teachings too. The emphasis on love, compassion, and forgiveness, the rejection of material wealth, the focus on inner peace and spiritual enlightenment. These are themes that echo strongly in both Christianity and Buddhism. But the question remains, is this a case of coincidence, or is there a deeper connection? Could the teachings of Buddha, which emerged 500 years before Jesus, have traveled westwards to influence the shaping of Christianity? Consider the historical context. A century after Buddha, Alexander the Great embarked on his eastern expedition, reaching the very regions where Buddha had lived and taught. Among his entourage were philosophers, including Piro of Elis, who spent a year and a half studying Buddhism. Pyrrho later developed a philosophy known as Pyrrhonism, which evolved into skepticism, then Stoicism, and eventually played a significant role in the development of early Christian thought. So, the possibility that Buddhist principles influence the life and teachings of Jesus is not as far-fetched as it might initially seem. The historical timelines align, the geographic paths intersect, and the philosophical parallels are too striking to ignore. While the connection between Buddhism and Christianity may still be a matter of debate, the similarities in their teachings of love, compassion, and forgiveness are undeniable. This begs the question, could the Jesus we know have been a Buddhist in essence, if not in name?